All right, here we go. Welcome to Off Topic with Tim and Matt, our wonderful sports show where we always go off topic. Okay, to get things started, top of mind, pretty much around the world right now are those unbelievable forest fires hitting Southern California, most specifically LA right now. You were just there at Christmas.
Yeah.
And you go first. I was in California, Northern California in November. And yeah, you go right ahead.
Well, and none of this was happening when I was there. It started up actually last Tuesday.
Do you remember? Do you know how it started?
It was actually I do believe it was a lightning strike.
Probably.
It was the winds coming in that took a small fire and then just exasperated it. So you got two big fires going on right now. You got the Palisades and you got the Eaton fire.
Yeah.
So the Palisades are up in the Malibu area. There was a nice big forest up there, a state park. Beautiful area along the Pacific Coast Highway.
That's where the Pacific Palisades were a lot of celebrities live.
A lot of celebrities live there. Beautiful area, Malibu area. It's in between Malibu and Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable how much of that area is just devastated. So I don't know if we can pull to my screen here for a second.
There you go.
But here's the Palisades up here in the top left.
Yeah.
And it's moving. They had to shut down Universal Studios on Thursday. Just for caution, right?
Evacuate.
Yeah, they're evacuating the area around there. They've got Santa Monica on evacuation alert. Now, the other fire goes a bit further up to the north here, and I do believe it's
Can you scroll
Pasadena, up in Pasadena area
Which
here.
Is a beautiful part of LA, I understand. Old Pasadena is allegedly.
So here you got the Eaton fire over here, and this here is getting a lot closer to areas that are more. So you got like a lot of rich community in the Palisades, right? A lot of money up there. This Eaton fire here is really hampering the lower income area.
Yeah.
So this is becoming a very, very costly thing.
People I don't know. Rent maybe don't have insurance.
And I heard. And I don't know how true this is. I haven't gone any research, but I heard that a lot of the insurance companies took away fire from their policies to make it a bit cheaper for people because they haven't had any fires. And it's those sort of things. It's like the flooding that we had here years ago where they took away the flood insurance because it never happened. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it happens, right? And that's why you have insurances.
That's kind of weird. I live in a floodplain where my house is, and it's considered a floodplain. So there's a couple of houses. Sorry, my coffee's going to fall over. A couple of houses in my neighborhood, getting off topic.
Yeah.
Mine has a crawl space, and my neighbor has a basement, and the odd house that I'm aware of has a basement. And whenever we get a lot of rain, they have to have sub pumps in there, and they pump all the water out.
Yeah.
My crawl space during the flood was right up to the joists.
Oh, wow.
Now, I was lucky because it wasn't flooding where I was, so we have like just the wooden cap that we put on. You take it off, and we walked away. And eventually it subsided and everything dried out, and grace of God go I. But anyway, back to the fires.
So one of the things that I was reading yesterday, and that it really made my heart swell, is they got this Eaton fire here, and people are being pushed out of there. The Rose Bowl, which was just used back on the first for the Rose Bowl game, right, has actually turned into a base station for the firefighters.
Oh, okay.
So the ones fighting that fire are coming back there. That's where they got all their equipment. That's where they got their ground station.
Yeah.
A bunch of food trucks showed up.
Okay.
Right? And they were like, eat.
Yeah.
Right? They're donating, they're feeding people, they're helping people rest, relax before they go back to the fire.
Yeah.
And then you've got these refugees coming, and these people are getting burnt out that have nowhere to go are coming there. And so people started bringing donations there.
Yeah.
So the parking lot of the Rose Bowl has turned into a donation center.
Jeez.
And you've got the Rams and the Chargers, the Vikings, and another team. I can't remember the other team.
Soccer?
It might have been Houston Texans because they're all playing today.
Yeah.
Or this weekend. That donated a bunch of money. The NFL donated a bunch of money. You see this here.
LA Strong.
This is LA Strong. All the teams supporting. All this money is going to disaster relief. The biggest problem that they're having fighting these fires. And people are like, where is the water?
Yeah.
They don't have the infrastructure to keep all the fire hydrants charged. They don't have the water for it in California. There's been droughts there for years. They've just been lucky that they haven't had this to date. But one of the things that has come up, and Trump being the president-elect and everything, has brought up the fact that years ago when he was in power, they had the drought going on, and they talked about running mountains out of running the watershed out of Northern California into the basins, into the culverts and whatnot, to get the water down there and start reusing the water. But there's a fish in the mountains called a smelt that it's a protected habitat.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm not sure how you got to look at human life and the damage.
It's a complicated argument. In terms of the water in California, the problem is very simple. There's 35 million people in California, which is more than Canada, and it's a desert.
Yeah.
And it produces most of the food for Canada and the U.S. They have 4 harvests. So agriculture uses a ton of water. So we can talk about smelts all we want and, defend the smelts, villainize the smelts, whatever you want. But there's just not enough water in California for even like watering your lawn. Now they got atmospheric river was a few years ago.
Yes.
Caused a bunch of flooding and stuff and housing destruction. The CBC, God love them, interviewed an aquaculture engineer. He's like, this is the best thing to happen to California because their groundwater was almost gone.
Yeah.
And so these massive floods that happened replenished a lot of the groundwater. But that's just for agriculture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you talk about this? If you don't live in an earthquake zone where earthquakes don't really happen, you don't have earthquake preparedness.
Yes.
Because this isn't a thing.
Yeah.
So if you live in LA and you don't have these kind of fires, of course you're not going to spend a lot of money on fire stuff. Like in this part of the world, I grew up in Canada where we have a ton of snow.
Yeah.
So in Montreal, for instance, you get a lot of snow. Winnipeg, you get a lot of snow. So they have snow removal in place with a big budget that sometimes they use and sometimes they use all of it or part of it, but they're always got equipment ready to go.
Right.
This part of the world, it takes weeks if you get a big snowfall because they don't have enough people to plow all the streets because they're not going to spend a lot of money on something that you never use. And it's like you got 2 kids. Do I get snow pants this year? We spent so much money and it didn't snow last year. And it's the same principle. Okay, I'm not going to do that. And then it snows, your kids are out of luck. It's the same problem with infrastructure. Having this kind of infrastructure, people don't realize these are pipes under the ground.
Yeah.
So you got to dig up the ground. You got to replace massive steel pipes. This is not cheap. This is not an easy thing to do.
Cheap or easy or fast.
But even if you have the water, they don't have the infrastructure to get the water to the fire hydrants to get it to the trucks.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So you can have all the water you want, but it's not going to work. It's like you have a well in your house, but you don't have any pipes going in your house. The water sits there, and you're bucketing it out of the well. You know what I mean? It's the same problem. So it's very, very complicated. It's not a simple answer. It's expensive to put it in, and it's expensive to put it out. And this is just unreal.
Well, and that was kind of to my point where they've got this aqueduct system in place that comes from the north all the way down to San Diego, like all the way down to the border, where they used to have the runoff come out of the mountains, right? But then ecology-wise, it was doing damage to ecosystems in the mountains, in the state parks, in that area. So they shut it off.
Yeah.
And now they're dumping this water into the ocean, right? And the argument is, well, could it not be dumped down there? Because then, you have a spot where they could go to these aqueduct systems or big basins and that sort of thing. This argument was with the drought and the food years ago.
Yeah.
They had the rain and they're like, okay, we're good. Right? They've got the groundwater back, it works for agriculture. We're okay.
Yeah.
Then you hit this. It's easy to say, we could have done this 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we would be sitting pretty, but hindsight's 2020.
And part of the problem is we haven't come to terms with global warming. So we looked at the fires that hit, Northwest Territories and across Ontario, Quebec. And New York Times did a big thing on it because, of course, the the Yankees game had to get canceled because the air coming out of Ontario and Quebec was so bad.
Yeah.
What they're starting to discover is we had the floods here, Christmas 08, 09, when I had just moved here and Greendale flooded out.
Yes.
We got a bunch of snow that turned to rain, the ground was saturated, and a bunch of houses got flooded out.
Yeah.
And the pumping stations failed because the pumping stations were this was a once in 200 year occurrence. You do the math on it. What they're discovering is the once in 200 year occurrence is happening every 5 to 10 years.
Yes.
So we're not bringing the infrastructure up because all of a sudden this is happening more and more and more and more and more. Floods and especially fire because of drought and global warming. And so you're not ready because you have to get, the old deer of government, the big gray ship turning in a different direction, which is very hard to do. And there's no simple answer to this.
But the question to ask yourself, is it happening more and more, or is it just because of our global presence and the how fast information travels that we're seeing it happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, so when you talk about locally here, the flooding that happened in Sumas, right? 35 years ago it happened too.
Yes.
Right? But it hadn't happened for 35 years. The infrastructure they put in place, they dealt with it 35 years. They put it in after the fact. Nothing happened. And the only reason it happened a second time is because they put infrastructure to fight it. And because nothing happened for such a long period of time, they stopped maintaining it.
Yes.
And so when they went and clicked it on, one of the pumps didn't work.
Right.
Right. So now these 3 pumps are trying to do the work of 4 pumps,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. They got inundated.
Right.
And so it's not just a matter of putting the infrastructure in place because they got the fire hydrant there.
Yeah.
So the piping's there, but they've got no water to put to the fire hydrant.
Right. And then the amount of water they need to fight this.
Yeah.
You have to have a bigger pipe to get the amount of water in, right?
True. Yeah.
And my wife asked this question, well, can they use salt water off the ocean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the water bombers from Quebec going over there because, Trump's going to invade, so we might as well go over there anyway. I don't know if they're grabbing salt water or not.
I think they are.
Yeah.
I think they are. But the problem that they have with the bombers and the planes,
Yeah.
and this was earlier this week, is they couldn't get them off the ground because they can't fly, and there's no point in dumping water if the winds are over 50 miles an hour.
Yes.
Well, you've got the winds coming in at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And that's what's blowing these fires up. I mean, if we just take a quick look back here on my screen, I'm just going to zoom out a bit here. Right, you see all these small fires here.
Yes.
These are regular occurrences on a daily.
Yeah.
That there's a small fire. Someone left a cigarette butt,
Yeah.
right? Or a car fire, or something happens. These are small fires that they deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's when those winds pick up with one of these small fires in a wooded area that it just blows it up.
And it's dry.
Dry. Yes.
In forest fires, there's the 30-30-30 rule. Okay.
Yeah.
30-degree heat, 30% humidity, which is dry because usually it's like close to 100% or 300%, and then 30-kilometer-an-hour winds. Well, you've got way more than 30-degree heat.
Yeah.
You've got way less than 30% humidity.
Yeah.
And like you said, you've got 160-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
And this is just like, matches the gasoline. So
100%.
And a lot of people are like, why do we care about the celebrities? Billy Crystal says he's rich and all this. Billy Crystal has been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And he's going to have memorabilia from Academy Awards to just, iconic pictures of himself, of people that aren't around anymore, that belong in museums. I mean, Steve Martin, he's a multimillionaire. He has priceless works of art in his house. Original paintings from Cézanne, Hopper, all these paintings. You're not going to replace those.
No.
Those artists aren't around anymore.
No.
So there's a lot more at stake than, Paris Hilton loses her house, or the Kardashians. People are crying me a river, but they have iconic stuff in their homes that you can't replace.
Well, and
if you like them or not, that stuff's important
as well. So.
Yeah, and they're human beings, of course.
Yeah.
What's the blue fire hydrant for? Part ways to handle 8.5 magnitude earthquake.
Yeah.
Okay, look at that. So what they've got here is we got this fire hydrant on the screen here, and these are in Vancouver. Are part of a system that can handle an 8.5 magnitude earthquake. So what happens with earthquakes? You get wires, fires, whatnot, right? These here, they're big enough, deep enough, strong enough, stable enough that if there was an earthquake, nothing's going to wreck that. So they can draw the water from there. Yeah.
It brings salt water in.
And it brings salt water in.
There you go, salt water.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Oh, okay. That's why it's blue too. So it's because it's the color of the ocean.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thoughts and prayers. People of LA, I don't know what else to say. There's donations. A lot of celebrities are throwing tons of money into this.
Well, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit further down. Like, you got the Rams and the Vikings game has moved from SoFi out to Arizona to make way for this. My thoughts are, and I'm part of Disney pages because I'm a big Disney fan.
Okay.
And we were just down there for New Year's and we left. We came back. It was fabulous. And people are talking, what's LA like? We got a trip planned. We're leaving this week or we're leaving that week.
Yeah.
You know what? If you don't have to, don't go.
Yeah.
Right? Every piece of resource that they have right now
Yeah, you're not going to LA now.
is being pushed into this.
No.
Disney isn't being affected. It's blue skies. It's clear.
Yeah.
Right? But the LAX, the resources, everything that they have is being directed north to these sort of things.
Yeah.
We're kind of regretting the fact that we didn't go to Santa Monica Pier on our last day there because the fires are pushing down to Santa Monica. So as we've seen in one of the previous pictures, they're right up behind the Hollywood sign. They were able to get that out. I know my wife saw a picture where the Hollywood sign was it was burnt out metal frame.
Yeah.
And I looked it up and that was just fake. And she was like, those damn AIs are tricking me again.
Right. And you know what? I mean, the Hollywood sign burns. They'll just rebuild it.
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
much to rebuild that.
Yeah.
But this is a picture. It's an iconic sign, and now this drives it home.
Yeah.
Right. That's what takes it home. I remember when the war in the former Yugoslavia was happening. And I mean, I've never been to Yugoslavia or whatever. But then in the midst of all this, they showed the old Olympic 1984. Was it 84? They had the Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, that's where so and so played. Like that clicks and that sends the message home to you that, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just not the rich people of Malibu that are having their houses burnt down and oh well, they'll rebuild again. It's like Tim said, you're losing a lot of history there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that service those areas, that live in those areas, that don't have that money that are being affected. FEMA's got $27.9 billion for disaster relief here, which is good. You know, there's a $209 billion disaster bill approved recently, so $27.9 billion is going over there towards this. It's going to be a lot to rebuild after this is done.
A lot of architecture that's hundreds of years old is going to get destroyed, and you can't rebuild it.
But until those winds die down, the containment is just
it's impossible.
Yeah,
it's literally impossible. Okay.
Thoughts and prayers with LA. We love LA. I'm a big fan of Southern California, so my heart's bleeding. I'm watching this on a daily. Yeah. Good luck, guys. And if you don't need to, don't go.
Don't go.
Yeah.
Okay. And that wraps up Off Topic. It wasn't sports.
No.
But it's an important topic, and I would be remiss if we didn't tackle it. So thank you very much for tuning in. Where we always go, Off Topic.